when you have a blowout loss, there's always takeaways to get from that matchup. On today's show, I'm going to give you two big ones, and these are pretty big doozies that I'm going to talk about. We'll get into that in just a moment.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome. This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. So, Eagles go out, they lose 48-22 on Saturday. A disappointing loss that ends the 5-game win streak and ends any hope of the path to an ACC championship. But there are bigger issues now. Now that BC had played a team that really exposed some of the issues that the team had, we're going to talk today about two lessons that we learned and two big issues that I see impacting BC going forward. And we're going to look at one on the offense and one on the defense. And in our final segment, we'll talk a little bit about basketball because the Eagles had an interesting win on Friday that we're going to have to get into as well. Now, let's talk about the offense. First of all, I have been I think folks have kind of gotten on me, and Mitch was saying this the other day too, Mitch Wolf, that Thomas Castellanos, I kind of made him into more than he should have been. We saw him explode at the beginning of the season with some big games. We, go back to that Army game where he had 4 touchdowns. He exploded against Georgia Tech. He's had some big games, but defenses have adjusted to him. And I don't feel like Thomas Castellanos has adjusted back. Nothing could have been more apparent than what we saw on Saturday when the first play of the game, instead of trying to establish the run, getting a good, first run of the game, Castellanos decides to throw the ball. And I'm sure he had the play call in, a lot of these first drives are scripted to throw it. And he throws an awful pass that's picked off by Virginia Tech. That is the worst way that you can establish any sort of momentum in a game. You basically lost the kickoff coin, got the ball, and then intercepted it right back to them. Bad. And so he makes one big mistake. And we've seen this with Castellanos. He's made some mistakes. You go back to each game that he's had a few, and against Syracuse, you were waiting for more of the balls to drop because I think Mitch Wolf said that he had 7 turnover worthy throws in that game. So it wasn't good. This game, he throws another interception on a pass that anyone who follows football, I think it was a 4-vert. He was throwing it, and all you have to do on those types of passes, get the ball to the outside. He underthrows it and throws it inside, which is right where the defender is. And he makes an easy play and makes his second interception of the game. That's it right there. You add in the onside kick, and that's all she wrote. The game would have been much different if we didn't have these. I don't know about much different, but it would have been a lot closer, I think, without some of these bonehead turnovers. You keep Chiron drones off the field. You maybe get some points out of it. It probably would have been a bit of a different outcome. I'm not saying BC would have won this, but this all gets to the point that I want to get here about Castellanos. And that is that he's got to start limiting what he does. BC's offense is not built to have catastrophic turnovers. I don't think there's any college team that's built to survive what he did that game. He has strengths, play to them. The Eagles have won games on the backs of just grinding the football out, just taking the ball, taking 5 yards at a time, let Castellanos run for 8 here and there. And then you get your first downs, you score. He doesn't need to go for these home run throw balls because they're bad. They're bad throws. He has lost his touch on some of these passes. And I don't know where it went because you go back to like the Virginia game. Yeah, he threw an interception in that game too. but he also made some nice throws to Lewis Bond. Where is he? He hasn't been much of this offense over the last couple of weeks as well. The offense needs to be tailored to what Castellanos can do. And I want to say, you're looking at you want to get your 7th win. Obviously, if you're Jeff Halfley, that's a huge game. It's going to be on Thursday. What do? You look at the Syracuse game film of what they did to Pitt this week. Pitt got trashed by Syracuse, who, as we just saw a couple weeks ago, isn't a very good football team. They ran the ball for 382 yards against Pitt. There is, you go to Las Vegas and there's that big sign that says like marriage is here and the arrow is pointing down at it. That should be where Jeff Halfley and Steve Shimko's game plan should happen. It should be opened up to zone reads, runs, all that good stuff. If Thomas Castellanos is out there throwing the ball on Thursday, that's a failure by either the staff or from him, if that's his choice of what he's choosing to do. They need to run the ball down Pitt's throat. They could not stop Syracuse, who was fine, but they're not BC. BC has the offensive line and physicality to run a team off the field. Pitt is 2-8. They're bad. They're real bad. They're not a team that's going to be looking for much of a physical fight. Castellanos is a perfect quarterback to get you going in that. You use him and maybe Kai Robichaux is back. If he's not, use Alex Broom. Alex Broom was fine last game, but he should not be throwing the football. The last thing you need against a team like that is him throwing the football. And then you have the season finale against Miami, who has one of the best safeties. I don't know. I can't remember if he's injured or not in the country. You don't need Thomas Castellanos throwing the football around on that. He needs the playbook simplified right now. He needs to focus on his runs. He needs to focus on getting his running backs the runs. And yeah, a few pass plays here and there on those short things that he can hit, but stop with the bombs. Stop trying to run it, throw it down the sidelines. That seems to never work as well. Get your reads that are there. And if they're not there, if you're even thinking you have to push it through, run it. But that's the thing I'm starting to worry about with Castellanos. I'm not sure he sees it. He thinks he's got, he's so juiced up, I think, sometimes that he feels like he can make those passes. So that's where the staff needs to help him here, because he's a good player. At times he makes bad mistakes. He can't make these bad mistakes anymore. He's got to figure that out, because the offense is going to fall apart if he continues to make turnovers. That is a lesson that we learned from Saturday's game. Now, in our second segment, I'm going to look at the defense, who had a very, very rough game. We'll talk about what we saw there and what lessons we learned about the defense. You're going to want to hear my thoughts on that in just a moment. Now, I am always looking for tickets to Broadway shows and to sporting events, and even wrestling events are some things I've been looking for too. And sometimes I can't just find good tickets. Like, it's hard, especially at the last minute. Well, you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying your next event. When you go to Game Time, they have last minute sales, flash deals, zone deals, everything. So if I'm going to WWE Raw and I'm looking for tickets, they're all on Game Time. It's so easy to find. I can see where I'm going to be sitting, if I get the best views, all that good stuff. And with easy to find to buy tickets for every kind of event, you can get the best deals from Game Time. So Game Time has deals right up to the tickets right up to the start of the event. They're dropping all the time. I'm a Pats fan. You guys, if you watch the Sunday's game, they're bad. The Game Time lets me know how cheap the tickets are getting. I can get, really good deals for Patriots tickets. So what you need to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Locked on BC. I'm your host, AJ Black, and we're talking about this game from Saturday. If you have not already listened to the post-game show, Mitch Wolf and I, Mitch of Eagle Insider, we were on the show right after. We were recording in the fourth quarter because we just got tired of watching the game. It was that bad. It was a train wreck. So if you need a full game recap, go back and listen to that episode. Both of us kind of really went into it. Now, we talked about Castellanos and the lessons we learned about what he can and can't do. The biggest lesson on the defensive side of the ball is I'm starting to really worry. Well, not even beginning to really worry. It's very clear to me that there is no defensive game changer on that team. We thought going into the season, you had preseason All ACC, all these accolades coming in for Donovan Azaraku, and you were feeling good. You're like, oh, BC's finally got their first pass rusher since Zach Allen, and that felt good, right? You're like, oh, nice, and that he's had good Pro Football Focus grades, and he does what he does well. But would you consider what Azaraku's done this year to be a game changer? It's hard to say he has. He doesn't. He really hasn't changed any game. Then you look at some of the other positional players out on that defensive line, and defensive line, and basically anyone out there. Who would you look at and say that guy can change a game? The one guy would be Elijah Jones, and we found out on Saturday he's no longer with the team. Jones, Mitch was going to write an article. I was working with him on this about how he had the statistics to show that he could be a Jim Thorpe, best defensive back in the country level type of player, that he could get to that level. He had 2 interceptions against Syracuse. He had 2 interceptions against, I was at Georgia Tech. I think he had two interceptions. He had 5 total. He allowed 4 receptions for 24 yards over the last 4 games. He's gone. We don't know why. The staff will never ask about it. So you can ask in the comment section, what did he do? AJ, what do you think is going to what happened? Ask Halfley about it. They're not going to say anything. I can tell you, we will never find out from the staff, at least, what happened here. But he's gone. And he said and Kevin Stone of Rivals said today that it's not injury related. Something else going on. That is a massive, massive loss for BC, especially for that Miami game. It's not a big deal, as big of a deal against Pitt, because Pitt, their offense is bad. And you could probably scrape by without him. It would have been nice to have him. But against Miami, that's a bigger issue when you have some of those bigger wide receivers out there that can hold their own. So you look at this defense, and you watch the game, and it had a rhythm to it on defense. It was like solid game for Jerome, solid game for Tootin. All their running game was just churning out yards, and then boom, hit you with an explosive. And it just happened over and over again. They would just grind and grind, and then boom, hit BC in the mouth. That is where a explosive player could have broken up that rhythm. You needed, on some of those RPOs or designed runs, someone to come in and just bulldoze that play to break it up. But BC doesn't have anyone like that. Nobody on that defense could get out, shed a tackle to make a play. And so every play was like 4 yards, 5 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards. And you're going to continue to get first downs like that. So this is a big issue for this defense. A good defensive playmaker can make all the difference in the world between a average to below average to good, to turning it into a good defense. You can mask a lot when you get a pass rush. Just think of that, right? Your secondary does not need to be great if you have a guy flying around in the backfield constantly making, pressures on the quarterback. But BC doesn't get pressure on the quarterback like ever. And so that exposes your secondary. That causes them to hold on too long. That causes them to miss, to lose their assignments. It's a cyclical effect. And so I don't want to blame this on Donovan Azaraku, because he's just a kid and he's trying to play as best as he can. And some of these matchups have not been great for pass rush, but the defense itself has just lacked that piece. And when you play a team like Syracuse, you play a team like Army or UVA, you can overcome that issue because they're not playing great offenses. When you play a physical offense like Virginia Tech, who I'm not going to say they're great, but they made them look great because BC just could not stop them. They could not they couldn't match them up physically. It was a bad matchup. I don't think we went into this game thinking it would be this bad, but by the middle of the first quarter, it was pretty clear to see that like that defense wasn't going to stop anybody. And so I think that's a major issue. And, I don't know how you can address that in the transfer portal. And I look at the roster and I go, who on that roster could step up to be that guy? Is it Neto Ekpala? Like, he's okay, but I mean, my gosh, how many missed tackles does he have this year in terms of like whiffing on plays that he could stop? Like, good players stop that. He's just struggled with it. You have other guys like Edward Kalengi or Gilbert Tongrangu. These guys they're not there yet. So this is a bigger issue, and I'm not sure where you could go in the transfer portal to get that, but they need defensive playmakers so badly, and it's very evident that they don't have those types of guys, especially now with Elijah Jones gone. In our final segment, we're going to go away from football to talk about basketball, who had a Friday night game that almost went the typical route of a BC basketball game against an out-of-conference opponent, but they survived by the skin of their teeth. Now, if you're not checked out Locked On ACC, it's a podcast I got to tell you about. It's with the great Candace Cooper and Kenton Gibbs. They do an amazing job breaking down everything ACC related. Check them out wherever you get your podcasts. Now, we spend a lot of time talking together, you and I. We get fired up together on wins and losses, who starts and who sits. I'm thankful for the connection that we have. And today I want our chat to be a little more personal. I just learned that you can get a 1-year supply of antibiotics through Jace Medical. You realize what that means? Bring on extended travel, bring on the next natural disaster or supply chain issue. You are covered, my friend. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for Cialis, Viagra, or Revatio prescription. And this is because of our friends at Jace Medical. Go online right now at jacemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply of your daily medication. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jace. I am thankful for the service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut my pills in half. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year's supply. I also ordered antibiotic kits. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone. If you or someone you love would get some peace of mind by having a year's supply of any daily med, go to jacemedical.com and use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black, and we're going to wrap things up by just kind of going over some of the things that went on this weekend. So hockey, they had 2 games. They lost. They had to go up to Orono, which is never fun, to play an upstart Maine Black Bears team. They lost the opener 4-2 and then tied the second game, which is big, and then won the shootout, so they get the extra point. So they leave with 2 points. That's big for BC. We have a full wrap-up of that up on BC Eagle Insider with BC Hockey Blogger, who is one of the best in terms of talking BC hockey. You got to check it out. He's got some stuff up there. Women's basketball beat Northeastern on Sunday, and that's a nice win for them. I don't have much to say about that, but I did want to talk about the men's basketball team that played on Friday night against the Citadel in South Carolina, Charleston. Excuse me. This was set up to be the typical bad Boston College basketball loss. Everything that we expect from BC basketball from the years of Steve Donahue, Jim Christian, reared its and even Earl Grant recently too, reared its ugly head. You went to go play a military school on Veterans Day weekend at their place. Why they're playing at the Citadel, I guess it's because Earl Grant's doing a favor for a friend. But you set yourself up here. And BC got dangerously close to losing to a Citadel team that was Ken Palm rated, I think, 263 when I looked at it. This would have been like everything going into this season. You had all this talk about NIT or NCAA tournament. That could have been gone in 2 games, the way that they played this game. Citadel had the lead at halftime. I think they were up by 4 points. You had Quinton Post, who had 31 points in the season opener, look completely disjointed in this game. He got in foul trouble early, kind of flailing around on some bad defensive plays. And then he got a technical that sent him out of the game because there was a play where he got called for a foul. He took the ball and then threw it in the air. Love Quinton Post, but not the brightest move in the world. So he sat for most of the second half. That was worrisome. Like once they said he was out, I was like, oh boy, here we go. what can BC do without their big man, their big scorer? And so my big takeaway from this, what I was like, wow, is that BC was still able to figure it out. That, I think, is a step in the right direction. They didn't let losing their best player let them drown. You know what I mean? You had Jaden Zachary, who I thought looked good out there. I think, had this career high in scoring with 21 points. He, was all over the place out there. He had 4 assists, 4 steals, shot 8 from 12 from the floor. He was good. He was very, very good. But the other big name that I saw too, that I was like, BC's got something there, is Donald Hand. Donald Hand played 26 minutes as well. He had 14 points, 2 steals, assist, and 4 rebounds. And he looks big. I love the way he's playing. Now, he is coming back from a knee surgery. He's still not 100%, and they're still kind of just, adjusting him into the game. But this guy's got to start soon, especially given what I saw from the other guard out there. Donald Hand, once he gets himself more accustomed to how he's playing and ready to kind of take that role, if Claudel Harris keeps playing the way he's playing, Donald Hand needs to be out there getting his minutes. Now, it's only 2 games, and I don't want to rip on the kid because, it's just a 2 games back and forth here. But Harris has not looked good. He shot 5 for 12. He had 12 points. He had a very good series here where he hit a 3-pointer, then stole the ball, and then dunked it. So he got 5 of his points in like and it gave BC the lead again. So that was good. So good flash there, but I'm a little hesitant on what he can do. But there's other players that I think are much bigger concerns. And my bigger concern about all of this is that BC basically played this whole game with no bench. Like, Chaz Kelly didn't play at all. Mason Madsen had a really bad game. He had 4 turnovers in limited minutes. Armani Mighty was okay, but like, you didn't see a ton from their bench. Mason Madsen had 3 minutes. Armani Mighty had 14 minutes. Chaz Kelly had 3. So the bench got shortened. I you know what? I worry about some of the things, but it's only 1 game, and you escaped it with a win. You escaped it by making some shots down the floor, doing the things that you got to do to win those types of games. So that part is impressive, but there's still some things that you're like, okay, they got to clean some of this stuff up. And next they're going to play against Richmond, who is averaging 91.5 points per game right now, with wins over VMI and Siena. So on Wednesday, you're going to hear us talk. We got a lot planned this week. It's a short week with Pitt game coming on Thursday. And we're going to have Mitch on Wednesday night. I'm still figuring this out. Noah Hiles I think he's from the Pittsburgh Gazette, is going to come on Tuesday. We've got a ton of different things going on. I also have a basketball, a big time BC basketball person that you all know. I'm sure you guys all know him, coming on to talk this game afterwards. You're going to get to hear from him. I think you guys are really excited to hear about him. I didn't think I'd ever have him on my podcast, but he's going to come on. I'm really excited to hear about what he has to say about that. So we're going to have a ton coming up on this podcast this week. Make sure you hit and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Like this podcast. Get everything going here. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. I'm heading out. Thank you all for listening. Sorry that it was another negative episode after BC loses to Virginia Tech this weekend. We'll be back again tomorrow for yet another episode. Thank you for all the everyday listeners. You are the lifeblood of this podcast, and I love each and every one of you. Take care, everyone.